everyone. Welcome to our last 30 on Thursday for 2014, where we will be talking about creating an employee directory in SharePoint, part 2 of our two-part presentation. If this is your first time joining us, our 30 on Thursday webinar series is a bi-weekly 30-minute SharePoint webinar series where we talk all things Microsoft SharePoint. Our full schedule for 2015 will be posted within the week on sharepoint.protiviti.com/webinars. We do have our SharePoint Roundtable schedule up for the first part of 2015. If you're interested in learning more about SharePoint 2013 search, visit us at any of these locations. They are free live events. You can learn more about these events at sharepoint.protiviti.com/events. So for today's session, it is being recorded. All of our archived past sessions can be found on our website as well if you're interested in watching any of the other webinars. If you have any questions during today's presentation, please insert them in the question window in the GoToMeeting toolbar, and we will get to all the questions at the end of the presentation. Our topic today, again, is creating an employee directory in SharePoint Part 2. Our presenter today is Brittany Kwait with Protiviti, and I am Julia Oates, and I will be moderating today's session. All right, so let's get started. All right, okay, Brittany, I made you presenter.
Thanks, Julia. Oh, I think I did the wrong thing. Sorry. I need to show my desktop. Do you see the PowerPoint?
I do not.
Nothing, huh? Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, let's try this. Okay, Julia, maybe you can help me here. It says show my screen, and I'm pressing the button, and I guess nobody can see my screen?
No. Can you make me presenter, and then I'll go back to you?
Sure. Sorry, folks. Okay, so
Okay, so I will make you presenter again.
Okay.
Maybe that'll work.
I hope so. Usually works all right. How about now?
Nope.
Is there a reason that it wouldn't be showing? What did I do wrong?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Let me make you organizer. Maybe that'll help. Are you on a tablet?
No.
Okay. Can you press the play button at the very top?
Yeah, that's what I'm clicking on. It says show my screen. Um,
And then do you see the
and then,
drop-down menu below Show My?
yes, and it's at the screen.
There we go.
You can see?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know what I did, but I'm glad it worked.
Great. Sorry
Okay.
about that, everyone.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know what that was, but if anything drops out again, just let me know. I did have some connectivity issues this morning, but it's been pretty good for the past couple hours. Right, so without further ado, we'll get started on part 2. Now, I don't know how many people on the line were here for the part 1 of the creating an employee directory. So I just want to talk a little bit about what it is that we did. At the bottom of the slide, I have a link to the YouTube video where I've gone through the employee directory and how that's set up, and we'll be building off that today. So the basic premise is we've created a custom page, actually a standard SharePoint search page in the Search Center, which we've then configured to be used as an employee directory. We added some sorts and filters to it, and we talked a little bit about the managed search properties, which were part of Central Admin. So the holidays are coming up. I appreciate everybody coming on the line today. If you haven't seen part 1 over the Christmas break, it's just a 20-minute video. You'll want to watch that to put a little more context on what it is that we're doing today. But if you did not watch part 1, please don't drop off. You'll be able to follow along just fine, and you'll be able to see some other ideas that you might be able to use in other parts of your SharePoint deployment. So let's talk about the setup. This is the same slide that I talked about in the last employee directory, but it's worth repeating because these are the assumptions that we're making on how all of this is working. So most important, you need the user profile service to be running. If you have My Sites installed, you'll have the user profile service. If you don't have My Sites, you may still have the user profile service. Those two are not mutually exclusive, but definitely if you have My Sites, this will already be working for you. Make sure that your AD, how it's set up to sync with your SharePoint site, is not using people that aren't people. So in your employee directory, you might see things like computer names or domain accounts, administrator accounts, or group email addresses. You'll need to make sure that those are not coming into the user profile service so that they don't appear in your employee directory. There are other ways around that, but that's the most straightforward way, and there's no reason that those need to be synced in. For some of what we'll talk about, mostly in the first session, although a little bit today, it's useful to have access to Central Admin or to be friends with somebody who does. We won't be touching any of those settings for today, but in the first setup, we did need it to configure a couple of the properties. In the example I'll be walking through today, I am on Office 365. There are some differences if you're on-prem, but for what we're doing today, they are mostly the same. It's just that initial configuration that's a little bit different, and that goes back to the difference between the central admin and what you can do on site. So I just want to make that clear. I'm on Office 365, so it might look a little bit different than your deployment if you are on-prem. The directory is going to be built into an Enterprise Search Center template. That's how I like to do it. I mean, people run their searches from anywhere within an intranet or within the site. They can be directed to a single place. It makes sense that they would go there for their people directory as well. It's a centralized location. They can run other searches from there, but it's not required. If you don't have an Enterprise Search Center, if you don't plan on setting up an Enterprise Search Center, if you have one and don't feel like the employee directory is a good fit, then you do not need to use that template. But that's how I've set it up here, and I will be talking a little bit about search navigation, which we'll talk about on this slide. So what is part 2? We are going to be using a custom result template to display our people. It's different from what SharePoint provides us. Next, we'll update the search navigation to allow us to find our employee directory, so that's something we didn't do last time. And for Throwback Thursday, I'm going to create a alphabetized directory at the top so that you can find people by last name. Oh, okay, so we're not ready for questions yet. We need to go and start actually looking at this. So you can see my screen, I hope. Julie will let me know if you can't. This is the employee directory that we built in the last webinar. It is basically a standard SharePoint search page which has been configured a little bit differently to show us all the results by default, which we can then refine instead of having us enter a search term and then bringing back those results. So it's just I think of it as a reverse search. So we're showing all the results instead of just a subset of the results by default. So what we see here is the standard SharePoint template for displaying results of the type people. So if you are searching for something and that something is a people, then this is how that result entry will look. But we have total control over how this appears. And we will start by creating a slightly different version of this template. I can see the person's name, their title, and their department. I'm going to add in their office. So over here on the left, we have a section for office. I'm guessing this is some sort of floor or building desk combination. I'm not sure. But we want this information to show up alongside other pieces of information on the profile. We also want to remove the bio. If you were interested in the bio, you can click on the person's name and view his or her My Site. You don't need to see it in the results here. At least that's how I'd like to change it. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start by editing the page. Now the customization is not actually done on the page. We're going to be doing it somewhere else, but I want to show you where to locate these files. If you've done any work with the content search web part or even the content query web part where you've customized the display templates, you'll be familiar with this process. It is a little bit different than what we have in 2010 since we didn't have search, HTML search templates. Next, I'll take the search results web part and we'll edit this one. And you'll see a section which is collapsed by default that says display templates. And when you expand that, you'll see that SharePoint is using the result type to display items. And what that means is SharePoint understands that the results that are being returned here are people. Therefore, it's going to use the people search result item template. So that's all configured within the search of the result types. So you can have results of videos, people, documents, and they all have a specific template that they use to show you information about that type. You can see that there's a link here that says to customize control display templates. If you click that, I'm going to open this in a new tab, it will bring you to a library with all of your display templates. And these are templates that are being used, as you can see by the URL, specifically within the search. So making a change at the search level will not impact how these results are displayed in other areas of the site because they are local to this search site, the search template. And I am given results for all sorts of searches, again, documents or recommended items because this is the search site. Now, one of the first things you'll notice, or you might not notice it straight away actually, it's probably one of the last things that you'll notice when you've been in here for a while, is there's no ribbon. There's no way to really come in here and change anything. You can open these items, but it will make you download it. You can see some of the other options here, but none of them are to edit. So how do you create a new display template? How do you edit an existing template? They don't really help you with this one, so that's why I'm here. You'll need to open the site in SharePoint Designer, which I've already done. And they don't make it easy for you to find where these are, so I will walk you through this. If you right-click on one of those in the site, you can go to the properties and find out what that exact path, and that's how you'll learn where they are. But once you've opened the site in Designer, you'll need to go to All Files, underscore catalogs, master page, which is not the same as going to master page over here. You won't get these same results. Then you go to display templates and search. So before I click on search, you can see that there's ones for content web parts, server style sheets, search. Those are the three that you might use in other situations, let's say a content search web part, content query web part, to customize the results. Since we're dealing with search and we want to look at the search results, we're going to click on search. So when you select this, it's going to populate all of those templates which we saw on the SharePoint site. But you'll notice something a little bit different here than you did in the SharePoint site, which is for every HTML file there is also a JavaScript file, which is this JS. In SharePoint 2013, when you create an HTML file for a display template, there's some SharePoint magic that runs in the background that converts your HTML into a JavaScript. Do not touch the JavaScript. If you think you know JavaScript, or if you know JavaScript, that's great. I wish I did, but that's not going to help you here. You have to know the HTML because you can't touch that JavaScript. You can, but it won't work. It will break. We're only going to be looking at the HTML. The item underscore person HTML is the file that we'll want to look at to customize. But we don't want to touch this one. We might as well leave that one alone in case we need to go back to it. The way to start to create your file is to right-click on that HTML file and then say New from Existing Page. That will make an exact copy of that item underscore person HTML file that you can then configure. So I already have one over here. If you don't know HTML, that's okay. You might want to have somebody else take a look at this for you. You're not going to break anything. It doesn't change anything on the SharePoint site. I don't want to scare you with this code. I won't talk about it too much. But I just do want to mention that how this was done is actually not as scary as it might look if this is really unfamiliar to you. If you just take a moment and look through the syntax, you might see that these divs correspond to how they are laid out on your SharePoint site. So the first thing I have over here on my template is name, name, and then title, and then department. And if you look through these tags in SharePoint, let me go back to the original one. I can see name, and then title, and then department. So what all we need to do is copy one of these existing ones, and then add in the value that we want to display, or to remove the value that we don't want to display, or whatever other change we need to make in the HTML. So what I wanted to do is remove the biography section and add in the office location. So I copied one of those other fields and I changed this to say office field, populated with the search term, the internal name. So that goes back to the first one where we did configure some of the results. If anybody wants to see more about that, I can cover it in the Q&A afterwards. And I just deleted at the bottom, I'll show you here on the item person, there's a section down here that says more info long. So if you, it scrolls too fast. More info long contains properties about me, and a bunch of other stuff, which is why it's long, and I don't need that in my employee directory. So I just removed this entire div called more info long, and I've saved that as a new name, item person Contoso, and you can see that it's here on the path. So in order to upload your customized HTML, you'll need to access SharePoint Designer or any other HTML editor that you're comfortable with. You won't be able to do it within the SharePoint interface because there's no option there to upload it. So once you have your HTML, SharePoint will go ahead and create the JavaScript for you. You don't have to create that. So I've uploaded the Contoso, item person Contoso, which is here, the HTML. You can see I did that this morning, and SharePoint created the JavaScript for me. And I can go back to the SharePoint site, and when I go to this section, the use result templates, I'm not using a result type. I want to change the item template display. So I'm going to switch the radio button to use a single template to display items, and I'm going to change that to the one that I created earlier, which is Contoso people item. As soon as you upload that file, this will be available. I didn't have to do anything. It's a lookup to that library, and it knows which ones are available. So I select the Contoso people item, say OK here. And when we're done refreshing, now I can now see that I have the office tag appearing right where I put it in those divs between the title and the name. And I don't see the bio anymore. That's gone. So I think that this looks a lot better. You can continue to tweak it, format it, add properties, remove properties. And all of that can be done in that HTML file, and it will update in real time. You don't need to go and reset it because it's looking at that template at runtime. Save the page. And the next thing I want to do is I don't need this people navigation anymore. Instead of having folks look for people, I want them to search the employee directory. So I want to replace this people navigation with the term employee directory and have it point to my page, which is directory.aspx. I know I'm going through a lot of this very fast. It is being recorded, so remember you can go back to YouTube and watch this. And feel free to send questions along. So we're going to update that in site settings. And in site settings, we have search. And now this is really confusing because none of these look like they have anything to do with that navigational element. You're probably thinking it's up here in look and feel. I know I did. And I continue to sometimes go up here because it just feels right. It feels like the place to go to navigation or to quick launch or something like that, but it's not. You have to go down to search, and you have to go to search settings. They should maybe pull that out and put search navigation something, but they haven't, so this is where you need to go. And you'll see your navigation here as it currently appears on the site. So here's people, and I want to get rid of this one. So we'll just delete that, and we'll create a new link. And this will be employee directory. And you can either put the URL in. If you don't, you can also browse to it. It'll give you a SharePoint Explorer interface. So here I can see directory, and I can select that, insert, and it will create that URL for me here. And we'll move this up. Right, now when I go back to my directory, I'll have to refresh the page again. So here's the old navigation, which I have cached because I just went back to the page. When I refresh, we should see employee directory. There it is. I know I'm almost out of time, so I'll try to do this last part just to give you a sense of how we get started with it, because I want to make sure that we leave time for questions. Also make up for the fact I couldn't share out my screen. So now we're going to put in, for Throwback Thursday, a little bit of an ABCDE type directory filtering by last name. To do this, we're going to use the oh-so-useful content editor web part. And this probably isn't the most elegant way to do it, but it's really fast and it works, and it's something that is accessible to everybody who's building a directory. So add a web part, and we're going to go to Media and Content, Content Editor, and I'm going to place this underneath my search navigation so that the ABCD is right on top of the search results. Oh, I think because I'm in Chrome, it's not going to let me move those around. We'll just wire that up this way. I think that will be 2. Perfect. And we also want to make sure it doesn't say content editor with a square around it, because that wouldn't look very good. So we're going to change the Chrome here to none. And apply. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to use KQL, which stands for the Keyword Query Language, to create this ABCD type directory. So I'm going to put a space to just kind of create some room between the navigation and my ABCD. And now I'll put my caps locks on and just go A space B space C D. You can sing along with me. Okay, I'll stop at G. And what you'll do is one at a time, select the letter and go to Insert, the orange insert, Link, and you can say from SharePoint. And we're going to have the page refresh. So we're going to go back to the directory page. And now this is where the KQL comes in. So you select #K, I've still got my caps lock on, K equals last name, and then whatever the letter is that you're starting with in an asterisk, which means bring back everything where the last name begins with A and then has whatever else after it, that last name property. And you can repeat this for every one of these. So you can just copy that URL and then paste it for each letter and just make sure that you are mapping that to the right link. And I'll make this a little bit bigger. We can do any type of formatting to this. Of course, we might want to make them look like links and underline them. I don't know, this is probably going to be too big. Let's see. That should be good to test. I actually don't know if there's anyone whose name begins with A. So let's do D too, because I know there's a D in here. Oh, I've got a minute left. It's a race against SharePoint. All right. And we'll do last name D. It's already in the memory. And I'll publish this page, although you probably just want to save it to test it out. So again, you might want to play with the formatting of this a little bit, make it clear what this is about, and put all your links in there and space it out. But then when I click on D, you can see it puts that term into the search box and filters everybody based on their last name beginning with D. Going back to A, I think there's only the administrator in here. So you can see how we can begin to create an alphabetized query by last name at the top of our directory, thereby finishing out the overall look and feel of the employee directory. So I hope you learned something today, and thank you very, very much for taking the time out at lunch or early in the morning if you're on the West Coast to join us. And this video will be available so you can watch through it at your own pace. And I hope everybody has a very happy holiday. We'll take some questions.
Okay, yep, we have 2 questions. Is everything you've shown today available in 2010?
Everything I showed is available in 2010, but the path to the display template, the HTML display template, is different. So with 2013, Microsoft introduce the SharePoint content search web part, and also this idea of using HTML to create these display templates. In 2010 or 2007 even, you can create these display templates, but it is not HTML. You'll have to do it in XSLT.
Okay, great. And someone wants to know, what if I have a custom property to display from the Active Directory?
Well, that's a good question. So the custom properties are set up in the user profile service. So this needs to be done in Central Admin. And once you've set up that property to be brought in, let's say, for example, company, that you have the name of the company, or you have sub-companies or subsidiaries, and you need that to display, that's not a default property that's available in SharePoint. You can go into the user profile service and map that to a property called company, and then what you need to do, I left this open because I thought there'd be a question about it from the last time, is you create, I know this is a little scary looking, but you have to create a crawled property for that so that it appears in your search results. So you might have something in here that says company maps to company. And then once you've done that, you can treat it like everything else that we've done here. And if that is not something that you're comfortable with, that's something that whoever your SharePoint administrator should be able to set up pretty easily.
Okay, great. And then someone asked for a step-by-step on how to configure this. We will be posting the recording on YouTube and on our website after the presentation today, so you can go through the presentation at your own pace. And I hope that would help you with a more step-by-step on how to configure this. 20 minutes isn't enough time to cover all this. So.
No, certainly not.
Okay, well, great. I think that's all the questions we have today. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you Brittany for presenting another great presentation for us. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday and a great new year, and we will see everyone in 2015.
Thanks again, everyone.
Have a great day.